Good evening, everyone. My name is Jean Dayton. I'm the secretary of the Bloomington North Rotary Club, and I'm executive chairperson for this event. On behalf of all three of Bloomington's Rotary Clubs, I'd like to welcome you to this 4th annual Bloomington Rotary Toast. We are delighted you could be here this evening to honor Steve and Connie Ferguson. In every way, Steve and Connie reflect the values of Rotary International and our motto of service above self. We're inspired by their good work in our community, and we're so delighted to celebrate their works tonight. We're happy to see many, many friends of Rotary and the Fergusons, friends as well, gathered here tonight. I'd like to introduce Katie Metz-Clavio. She's also a member of Bloomington North Rotary Club and is the treasurer there. She's the Toast Program Committee Chair, and she will talk just a little bit more about Rotary International and what we do in our community.
So something I personally find to be really cool about Rotary is that we're committed to education for all. Internationally, we strengthen the capacity of communities to support basic education and literacy, reduce gender disparity in education, and increase adult literacy. So Rotarians all over the world open schools, teach adults to read, provide scholarships, show educators new teaching methods, and help make education globally healthier and safer. To give you a bit of context, that's 1.2 million neighbors, friends, and community leaders across more than 35,000 clubs in over 200 countries who come together to create positive, lasting changes in our community and around the world. Here in our own community, we have 3 Rotary clubs: Bloomington North, Bloomington Rotary, and Bloomington Sunrise. And all 3 of those clubs work hard to ensure that we're exemplifying those values and collaborating our efforts, most importantly, collaborating our efforts to better our community. You'll hear more about those efforts when the formal program begins, and we're particularly proud to say that Rotary has been part of the Bloomington community for now over 100 years.
As we begin our dinner service tonight, I just want to thank a few people who are key to this evening's success. Elias and Matthew in the back of the room provided wonderful music for us during cocktail hour and will during dinner. We've got Bloomington High School South Interact volunteers who helped take your coats this evening. And Bill Bennett is our fabulous photographer for the event. I want to tell you a little bit about our Master of Ceremonies tonight, who will join us after the dinner service. Keith Klein is our Master of Ceremonies tonight. Keith is the retired chair of the communication department at Ivy Tech Community College. He remains an adjunct professor at the college. Prior to his tenure at Ivy Tech, he was an NBC News correspondent in Chicago, my home area, for 10 years, and then he directed IU's WTIU station for 20 years. He currently co-hosts a radio program on WGCL AM 1370 in Bloomington. He's a member of the MCCSC Board of Trustees, and he's a 38-year member of Rotary International. Among other prestigious honors, Mr. Klein has received the Indiana High School Athletic Association Golden Whistle Award, recognizing his 52 years as a sports official. We'll invite Mr. Klein to the stage to begin the program in just about an hour. In the meantime, enjoy dinner, and thank you again so much for coming to the Bloomington Rotary Toast.
I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Rotary Toast. As we begin the program, I'd like to extend special thanks and welcome to our Platinum and Gold event sponsors. Their generous commitment to the community not only gives us an opportunity to gather tonight to honor the Fergusons, but also to show support for many of the charitable activities that are going on in our community. Platinum level sponsors are Cook Medical, CFC Properties, CS Property Management, French Lick Resort, Garden Villa Lee Marchant, the Becky Rismalis family, L.A. Mary and Associates, Premier Healthcare Foundation, Smithville Fiber. Our gold level sponsors are Don and Sharon Adams, Curry Auto Sales and Service, Lakeside Art Glass, Mark Dayton, MD, PhD, Hilliard Lyons Matthews, Snyder Team, Ivy Tech Community College. I have to forgive that if I want to go back on Monday to my class. Okay. Quality Mill Supply and Title Plus. We'd also like, yeah, let's hear it for those folks. I'd also like to take a moment to draw your attention to the Blue Level sponsors for our program this evening. Their names are inside the program that was at your place, and the generosity of all of our Blue Level sponsors. Without that, we certainly would not be able to be here tonight celebrating our remarkable honorees. It is now my pleasure to introduce our honorees and tell you a little bit more about the organization that they have selected to benefit from this evening's proceeds. This year, for the first time, we honor a couple, Connie and Steve Ferguson. In 1986, our couple met during an event marking the renovation of Fountain Square Mall here in Bloomington, and they've spent decades together exemplifying the Rotary motto of service above self in our community and all of the things that they do jointly and individually. Connie is an Indiana University graduate and has managed CS property management since 1991. She has served as chair of the Ivy Tech Bloomington Campus Board of Trustees since its inception in 2002, and she has received the John Weikart Award this year for her countless hours of service to the college. Steve Ferguson is chairman of the board for Cook Group Incorporated. He received his undergraduate degree from Wabash College and his law degree from Indiana University. Now, we all know about the Sagamore of the Wabash, and most of us know that governors give those to very special and distinguished people. Steve has a Sagamore of the Wabash. In fact, he has 5 Sagamores of the Wabash from 5 different Indiana governors. That's the kind of person we're honoring here tonight. Connie and Steve have 5 children and 11 grandchildren, also keeping them busy. So please join me in greeting Mr. and Mrs. Steve and Connie Ferguson as I invite them on stage for the remainder of the program. It says in the script, Mr. and Mrs. Ferguson. It's Connie and Steve. That's the kind of people they are, but they have chosen the scholarship fund at Ivy Tech Community College to receive proceeds from this evening's event. Created to support students of promise and need attending Ivy Tech Bloomington's campus, the scholarship fund helps students persist and succeed in earning their degree. Many are working toward employment in their healthcare audit fields, such as nursing, biotechnology, radiation therapy. Others, due to life obligations, attend only part-time and are not eligible for other forms of financial aid. These scholarships strengthen the students and their families and have far-reaching investment in our community. And now, I want to take a brief moment to talk about some of the other organizations that have benefited from these previous toasts and will benefit from this one. In addition to the honorees who have chosen organization proceeds to benefit local 501c3 organizations supported by the 3 Bloomington Rotary Clubs, last year's event, this event, supported 3 local projects with over $6,000 each for those 3 local projects. let me give you a kind of an overview of what those three projects were. Bloomington Rotary's assistance to Amethyst House in refreshing the now new spaces for residents, including club members, volunteering to paint the gathering room and the hallway. Bloomington North's partnership with CASA of Monroe County to fund backpacks and school supplies to needy students served our local CASA so that they could start the school year fully prepared. And Bloomington Sunrise Rotary volunteer worked for financial assistance at My Sister's Closet, preparing their ready-to-work room and a space dedicated to job skills training and on-site client programming designed to help clients acquire and maintain gainful employment. Our first toaster this evening is John Weikart, Chancellor Emeritus of Ivy Tech Community College, Bloomington. John Weikart. No, you stay here.
Oh, stay here,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm supposed to tell them about you.
oh,
No, you can stay.
Okay.
Just try to look humble.
Oh,
That's his humble look. As Chancellor, John led the Bloomington campus of Ivy Tech during a period of surging enrollment, growth, and facility expansion September of 2001 to January of 2014. John first joined Ivy Tech's Kokomo campus in 1991, and prior to that served as Chief of Staff for then Senate Minority Leader and later Governor Frank O'Bannon. After leaving Ivy Tech, John served as Deputy Mayor of Bloomington under Mark Cruzan, and John continues his community involvement as a member of several local boards and commissions. Now, please welcome John Weikart.
thank you. A couple of quick announcements. We were asked to be rather brief this evening because the last season of House of Cards begins tonight on Netflix. Spoiler alert, Frank Underwood is dead for obvious contractual reasons. And Claire Underwood is president. You'll have to watch the rest of it yourself beginning this evening at 9 p.m. Secondly, I have 5 fewer Sagamore of the Wabash Awards than Steve Ferguson. I also do not have a tuxedo, but until tonight I didn't know Steve Ferguson had a tie. You know, I want to thank Connie and Steve for inviting me to be one of the toasters this evening. I've known Connie and Steve for almost, well, a little over 17 years now, most of it through our connections with Ivy Tech Community College. I met Connie on Wednesday, September 5th, 2001, when President Gerald Lampkin assigned me to the Bloomington campus and brought me to the campus and introduced me to the faculty, staff, and I met Connie and the regional trustees in one of the conference rooms at the old Westbury campus on the west side of town. And I vividly recall meeting Connie and the other regional trustees in that meeting. I also vividly recall President Lampkin driving away and leaving me behind with Connie and the regional trustees and the faculty and staff. But as Keith indicated, Connie's relationship with Ivy Tech dated back to 1998 when she was appointed to the Columbus Campus Regional Board. And at that time, the Bloomington campus was a satellite campus to Columbus. And through Connie's leadership, that separation of the Bloomington campus from Columbus occurred in 2000, and Bloomington became a standalone campus, and chaired its and has been chair of the Regional Board of Trustees since that time. She has chaired 2 major fundraising campaigns for the campus, including the one that was the construction of the new campus on West 3rd Street and the expansion of that campus more recently. And Steve and Connie's gift made that expansion possible. She's led the campus through its transformation to a community college, to the addition of its life science buildings and nursing buildings and the Waldron Arts Center buildings. And probably as importantly, but flying under the radar for most of you, she ensured that the Bloomington campus remained as a unique standalone campus a few years ago. When there was an attempt to combine the Bloomington campus with the Evansville and Terre Haute campuses, and through Connie's leadership, that merger did not occur. And in addition to her roles with the local campus, Connie has found time to serve on the Ivy Tech State Foundation Board of Directors. And Connie and Steve's personal generosity has funded multiple student scholarships in the health and nursing and life sciences fields, supporting, I am told today, almost 200 students who have been the beneficiaries of those scholarships. And in recognition of Connie's dedicated leadership and support to the college named the Bloomington campus academic building in her honor in 2011, the Connie Ferguson Academic Building. Over those same many years, I've had the pleasure to also get to know Steve, and Ivy Tech has certainly benefited from his support as well. The campus biotechnology degree program, the most successful in the entire statewide system, was a result of Steve's support and advocacy and Cook's. And that program led to the collaboration between the college and Monroe County that resulted in the Indiana Center for the Life Sciences building on our campus, and in the receipt of the largest state strategic skills initiative grant for the Bloomington campus. And Steve's leadership led to the expansion of the Bloomington's campus's role in Orange County at the French Lick Learning Center, which was created with the financial support of the French Lick Resort Hotel and the governmental leadership of the small towns in Orange County, frankly, through Steve's persistence. And back to their partnership in support of education, in 2010, as our county sought ways to recognize and honor Gail and Bill Cook, it was Connie and Steve who lobbied the Cooks, specifically, as I recall, by making the lead gift in the support of the Cook Center as a birthday present to Mr. Cook that year, that permitted the creation of the Gail and Bill Cook Center for Entrepreneurship at the Bloomington campus. That academic program now enrolls hundreds of students in entrepreneurship courses statewide that were created here at the Ivy Tech campus because of the creation of the Center for Entrepreneurship through Steve and Connie's advocacy. And I would like to close by sharing a story that still remains among my most lasting and powerful memories of the Fergusons' personal commitment to changing the lives of the residents of our region, the mission of Ivy Tech. On a cold Monday morning in January of 2005, several yellow school buses from Orange County arrived at the Ivy Tech College campus in Bloomington. Stepping off and walking into the Ivy Tech building were employees of the French Lick Resort Hotel. Among them were 3 generations of one family, many individuals who had never been to Bloomington, and no one had ever been to a college. They were there because Mr. Cook told the hotel employees when he met with them after its purchase that it would be closed for perhaps a year for renovation. The employees had been through closures before. Different this time was that Mr. Cook told them that he was keeping them in full pay status so they could go through a training program at Ivy Tech to prepare them for the hotel's reopening. A program Steve had worked with the campus to design. The program was 5 months long and included some computer work, and every weekday for 5 months, those school buses pulled up, and that group of employees, including an 85-year-old man who had worked for the hotel for 50 years, came into the building and went to class. Getting off that bus for the first time, coming to Bloomington, returning for classes for 5 months, was the bravest group of students I ever saw come in that academic building. But the strongest memory I have is the following late May, following all the pomp and circumstance of our regular academic commencement in early May at the IU auditorium. You know the type: caps and gowns, processionals, speeches, degrees awarded. Steve and I went to the small American Legion Hall in French Lick, and we presented a certificate of completion to all the hotel employees. And each one also earned 1 college credit. Just like at the IU auditorium, everyone was dressed up, excited, applauding their graduates, including that 85-year-old man who received his certificate and his college credit. And he walked across that stage and shook hands with Steve and me as he passed. And all 3 of us, I think, were extremely emotional at that moment. And I like to think that families were changed that night, that college didn't seem so inaccessible to everyone, and perhaps generational cycles of undereducation and underemployment might be broken as a result of activity like that. And the Cooks did that, and the Fergusons did that in a small American Legion Hall in French Lick, Indiana. These are the kinds of contributions both Connie and Steve have made to our county, our community, our region, just in the 17 years I've known them. And Linda and I are blessed and grateful to call Connie and Steve our friends. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you stand and raise your glass, and with me, as I offer the toast to Connie and Steve. Connie and Steve, thank you for your personal generosity, for the commitment of your time, for your individual and collective leadership, and for making Bloomington, Southern Indiana, our students and our many families, your beneficiaries. Hear, hear. Thank you.
John Weichart may not be aware of this, but he's responsible for me being at Ivy Tech. But Jenny Vaughn, the current chancellor, is here and said I might be able to stay another semester if I mention she's sitting right over there, so. Our second toaster of the evening is Indiana University President Michael McRobbie. Yes, please. Michael McRobbie has served as the 18th president of Indiana University since 2007. He previously served as IU's Vice President for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer, Vice President for Research, and Interim Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs of IU, Bloomington. Under his leadership as president, IU has seen a reinvigoration of its international engagement, a major academic restructuring during which 10 new schools have been established, and construction or renewal of more than 100 major new facilities across all campuses with a total dollar value of $2.5 billion. His leadership has also been the launch of, for all, the Indiana University Bicentennial Campaign, which has a goal of raising $3 billion for IU's bicentennial by the year 2020. They'll be talking to you. As President McRobbie comes to the stage, and please take your time, President McRobbie, because we're asking you to join me in welcoming a special guest, Evan Cogswell, who will be treating us to a special performance of Indiana, Our Indiana on the Webb Ehrlich Great Organ of Alumni Hall, Opus 91. Evan is a second-year doctoral student in organ performance in the Jacobs School of Music and is an associate instructor for the IU organ department.
Music to my ears. Well, thank you very much. I do want to say at the outset that Steve Ferguson and I, Steve was the chair of the Board of Trustees when I was appointed president, and we sort of formed a team together for a number of years. And we had one thing in common, and that was that between the two of us, we had the thickest accents of anybody at Indiana University. And I quite often am asked when people hear me talk, that's an interesting accent, where are you from? And I'll always say, from southern Indiana, like Steve Ferguson. And Steve and I would meet every couple of weeks, and Steve would come in, and whenever he sat down, he would always be adjusting his hearing aid, and I think he was switching it on to translate, and on his particular hearing aid. Well, Laurie and I are really delighted to be here once again in the company of the so many Rotarian friends, and many of whom, of course, are alumni of Indiana University and are current faculty or staff of the university. And it is wonderful that so many of you are here tonight to honour Steve and Connie. Laurie, in fact, is a former Rotary member, and both of us have been honoured over the years by being named Paul Harris Fellows, and we're both proudly wearing our pins tonight as well. And on behalf of Indiana University, we want to express our appreciation to the members of all three of Bloomington's Rotary clubs for all that you do collectively between you and all that you give back to the community. I think Bloomington as a city and as a community is so much better because of what those three Rotary clubs contribute to the city. And of course, I am delighted to be here tonight to help honour Connie and Steve Ferguson, whose contributions to the city of Bloomington, to Indiana University, of course, and to the whole state of Indiana have been truly enormous and on quite a prodigious scale. I have the great pleasure, of course, of speaking on behalf of the university, and IU is proud to count both of them as alumni. Connie earned a degree from IU in General Studies, and of course Steve earned a law degree with distinction from IU's Mao School of Law, and of course had a very successful legal practice after this. Earlier this year, during May, during our undergraduate commencement ceremony, I had the great pleasure of presenting Steve with an honorary IU doctorate in front of about 40,000 people in recognition of his distinguished career and his remarkable service to the state and to IU. So to all of you, here's Dr. Ferguson now, never forget that. And Connie and Steve's conviction that quality, accessible higher education that both of these are essential to Indiana's future is demonstrated in their extensive history of service. I first met Steve actually shortly after I came to IU when I was the Vice President for Information Technology. And Steve was serving at the time as chair of the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, and I well recall giving him a tour of our old, extremely inadequate, dilapidated machine room and making the case as emphatically as I could as to how squalid and awful it was and the need for a replacement building. It was actually successful because we eventually got a replacement building. And in, of course, 1998, Steve resigned his appointment on the Higher Education Committee because he had been appointed as a trustee of Indiana University. And members, of course, of the IU Board of Trustees and the IU Foundation Board of Directors, all of them give their time and energy selflessly to the service of both of those organizations and to the university to a degree that probably none of them fully realized when they first took on this particular role. They take on what is really a solemn and sometimes daunting responsibility of guarding and caring for the welfare of the entire university. Legally, the Board of Trustees of the university hold the university and all of its assets in trust for the people of Indiana. And in his 12 years of service on the IU Board of Trustees, Steve carried these responsibilities out with great seriousness and enormous dedication. His years on the board included 2 consecutive terms as chair of the trustees, and he served concurrently on the IU Foundation Board of Directors during this period. As a trustee, Steve helped to lead IU's efforts to improve the quality of the student body. Our SATs from, I think when Steve came onto the board to where they are now has probably increased by close to 250 points, to keep an IU education affordable and to make even greater contributions to the economic development of the state. He also helped lead the major effort to restructure IU's central administration, including the creation of the position of provost, which I had the great honour of being the first person to fill. The process of creating master plans for the long-term future development of IU campuses, hopefully you can see some of the impact of that around the campus now as you walk the campus. That this began while Steve was chair of the trustees, and his invaluable support and his deep knowledge of this campus helped make possible the construction of many new facilities on not just this campus, but all of the campuses of the university. I know that Steve is also delighted by the recent renovation of Swain Hall East and Swain Hall West, and the demolition of the former unattractive concrete brutalist connection between the buildings, which he loathed as much as I did, actually. In fact, he was very much like the great Roman statesman Cato the Elder. I think at the end of every meeting with Steve, he would always say that building must be demolished, and eventually we got it demolished as well. And Steve was also instrumental in something very close to my own interest in the founding of IU's School of Informatics, now, of course, the School of Informatics, Computing and Engineering. Yes, for those of you who don't know, IU is now an engineering school. And Steve was one of the inaugural members of the school's Board of Advisors. And more recently, he chaired the IU Bloomington Engineering Advocacy and Advisory Board, and his work in that role, including appearing with myself and others before what was the final decisive meeting of the Commission for Higher Education to vote on whether or not to allow IU to proceed with the offering of an engineering program. Did you hear what he said? He said it was opposed by Purdue. I'm just quoting what he said. But Steve's work on that, I think, was really instrumental to the successful establishment of a thriving new program in intelligent systems engineering in the school, which this year in particular we've really seen explode in terms of its interest. And Connie has served on the Women's Philanthropy Leadership Council, which my wife Laurie was the founding co-chair of, and which has, I think, really been a pioneering effort in the country in terms of the engagement of women in philanthropy, really almost untouched before as a separate topic in any institution. And the council has actually been immensely successful and has led fundraising and engagement efforts that inspire women to serve IU philanthropically and through their service as well. So in addition to giving years of dedicated service, Connie and Steve are among IU's most loyal and most generous philanthropic supporters. Members of the IU Foundation's, they are members, of course, of the IU Foundation's President's Circle, and they have for nearly 40 years generously supported just dozens of schools, programs, and centres right across the university. A list too long, frankly, to recount. The sheer scale of what they have done and where they contributed in the university has been immense. But I think one thing that I think is just indicative of both of their commitment to the campus and the core value of the environment and the heritage, the legacy of the campus occurred in 2011 when a severe windstorm swept through the campus, resulting in the loss of hundreds of trees. And within 24 hours, I had heard from Connie and Steve, and they offered to and made the commitment to donate 150 fully grown trees to help reforest the beautiful wooded areas of the campus which had been destroyed during that. So, if I could ask you, as John did previously, to all stand, raise your glasses, and join me in toasting two of Indiana University's most loyal supporters whose dedicated service puts them in the company of a small handful of couples who have served IU at the highest levels and whose names are forever woven in the history and fabric of Indiana University. So Steve and Connie, cheers. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, I'm finding my place. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jody Hoagland, sponsorship chair of this event and president of Bloomington North Rotary Club. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome Rotary District Governor nominee Jessica Hain to the podium for the presentation of the Paul Harris Fellowship.
Thanks, Jody. I know I'm being timed, but I have to say, how many Rotarians do we have in the audience? Just gently raise your hand. Excellent. Now, everyone else whose hand is not raised, we have room for you in our clubs. We are holding spots for you, just so you know. Right? So Connie and Steve, I'm going to be looking at the audience when I talk, but I feel like I should be looking right at the two of you, so I'm a little bit conflicted. So just pretend that I'm looking right at the two of you. Okay, heartfelt, eye to eye, eye to eye. Right. So in appreciation for the many ways in which you both exemplify Rotary's motto of service above self, and on behalf of the over 180 women and men who are in our Bloomington Rotary clubs, it is my honor and pleasure to present you today with our Paul Harris Fellow Awards. Thank you. That works out perfectly. Ooh, and Jody's going to take care of it for me, which is awesome. Allow me to tell you a little bit about Paul Harris. Paul Harris was the founder of Rotary over 113 years ago in Evanston, Illinois. And today, our international organization includes over 1.2 million Rotarians in over 35,000 Rotary clubs in over 200 countries around the world. And this award is in name of our founder. So together, Connie and Steve join an amazing group of Rotarians throughout the world and Rotarians and individuals in this room. Please stand up if you are a Paul Harris Fellow. You can do it. Thank you. Connie and Steve, you now stand with notable individuals such as Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Prince Charles, Indira Gandhi, Pope John Paul II, President Jimmy Carter, Dr. Jonas Salk, Dr. Larry Rink, Mr. Ron Remack, and Mrs. Becky Hersmalis. It's a pretty special group. On behalf of the trustees of the Rotary Foundation, it is our pleasure to present you with these emblems, as we have certificates and pins to show that you are Paul Harris Fellows. We urge you to wear the pin. You're winning already. Look at you go. As a symbol of our appreciation for you and for all of your humanitarian service. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me one more time in congratulating and recognizing our newest Paul Harris Fellows, Steve and Connie Ferguson. This is you.
But wait, there's more. I have a lot of whereas and wherefores here, but I'm going to skip to the chase. Whereas Connie and Steve Ferguson have made a profound and lasting impact on education, economic development, and quality of life in our community. Now, therefore, I, John Hamilton, in proxy, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, do hereby proclaim November 2nd, 2018 as Connie and Steve Ferguson Day.
And now I'd like to introduce our third toaster of the evening, Pete Yonkman. Pete Yonkman is president of Cook Group and Cook Medical, Bloomington, Indiana. He's been with the company for 17 years, starting in 2001 as in-house counsel. Pete has served in a variety of roles for Cook. He was named president of Cook Medical in 2014, and in 2015 added the role of president of Cook Group. Pete is a born and raised Hoosier, originally from Crown Point, Indiana, the region. He's graduated from Indiana University. He's earned a degree in psychology and philosophy, and from the Maurer School of Law at Indiana University in 1998. Pete is actively involved in community issues, including adult education, workforce development, fostering startups, and creating businesses and cultures that support entrepreneurs. He lives in Bloomington with his wife, Janelle, and his two sons, Leo and Vic. Before I ask Pete to come up here as a member of the MCCSC School Board, I want to tell you that part about being interested in what people in this community are getting in terms of education. I've been at graduations of like the graduation school in town where Cook has guaranteed that if the people will go there and get a degree or a certificate, that they will have a job at Cook, and Pete is at the graduation ceremonies for these university events each time. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Yonkman.
had to suck up a little bit before we start this talk. Good evening. How are you? It's good to be here with you all. I want to say thank you for having us, and thank you to the 3 Bloomington Rotary clubs for hosting this event. Organizations like Rotary provide a lot of valuable functions in the community. And I think one of the most important is that once a year, you provide a spotlight that focuses all of our attention on folks who have worked hard to improve the community. And they improve the community not just by giving time, money, and passion, which you've seen a lot of already tonight, but they do that by forging a pathway for future leaders to follow. So I want to say thank you to Steve and Connie for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you very much. And when they asked me to speak, I was humbled, I was honored, although I'm not sure I was their first choice. Let me tell you the story of how Steve asked me to speak. So I was in my office. Steve came in, he said, well, Pete, you see, Connie and I are getting this award, and, oh God, Connie thinks that maybe, possibly, you could be a speaker, and so I'm here because she's making me, and fully against my better judgment, I'm asking you to speak, and I realize that I'm giving you an open microphone to talk about us both in public. How can you pass up an offer like that, right? So, one thing you should know about me is that I'm a stickler for typos. And I want to let whoever know that created the brochure for tonight's event know that I noticed that the title was somehow auto-corrected from a roast to a toast. So, don't worry, I've noticed, and I'm fully prepared. Let's start off with some facts about Steve and Connie. The first thing you need to know about Steve and Connie, they're what is known as a power couple. And the fact that they are a power couple is evidenced by this picture of them about ready to take flight. The second thing you should know about them is that they are really incredible award and board seat hogs. I mean, seriously, how does anybody else get on the cover of Bloom magazine if you guys are taking up all the board seats and all the awards? So I want to prove to you how selfish they really are. Let's start with Connie. She's been awarded the Diane Breeden Award. She's in the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. She was in the first Hoosier Fest committee, 4th of July parade, the first Business After Hours committee. She was the chair of the Monroe County Convention Center. She's been on the Bloomington Hospital Foundation, Ivy Tech, and obviously, as John said, instrumental in raising the funds needed to expand and improve Ivy Tech, which has been a huge benefit to the community, but also to us at Cook. So thank you for that, Connie. She was a founding member of the IU Women's Philanthropy Council, and she's on the Unique Club. I have no idea what the hell that is. But it was founded in 1895. Connie says she wasn't there. Now, Steve. Steve takes his selfishness to a whole other level. His list of boards runs 6 pages long. I'm not kidding. So I'll spare you the details, but let me give you a few of the highlights. So, over the time, Steve has served on more than 30 boards and commissions. He is still active on 7 of them. He was given the Businessman of the Year Award by the State Chamber and the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. This one I think is particularly fantastic. He's personally responsible for preserving more than 1,500 acres of land in our community right here in Indiana. And as was mentioned previously, he's been given the governor's highest award, the Sagamore of the Wabash, 5 times. Interesting, 4 times by the last 4 governors straight. And so when you see Steve around the State House, he's just trying to keep a streak alive. And interesting fact, Steve only needs 1 more Sagamore to tie Herman B. Wells. And if you know anything about Steve, if you know anything at all about Steve, you know there's no way in hell he's letting that guy have more Sagamores than him. Now, I'm sure you probably know, if you've known Steve for a while, he's an avid golfer, loves to golf. I don't golf, but I've heard he's actually pretty good. In fact, he's good enough, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I think it's wonderful in today's world of gender equality that he was inducted into the Ladies Professional Golf Association Hall of Fame. That's a lot of stuff, isn't it? It's a lot of things. I don't know how they have time for it, to be honest. When you look at all that, it's a lot of time. And I asked Steve's assistant, I asked, can you look and see? And it turns out that Steve and Connie have been to 58 dinner events since January alone of this year. And that means that individually, they have each eaten 28 pounds of chicken. That is not a stock photo of chicken. That is 28 pounds of chicken exactly. And we verified that with the cafeteria staff at Cook. I'd like to share what I'm supposed to be doing is sharing our perspective from Cook on the impact that Steve has had in the world of medicine. And Connie, I know that this part is going to be a little bit Steve-centric, so I apologize. Yeah. But I do want you to know that we all acknowledge the incredible sacrifices you've made living with this guy. You have no idea how much I love those pictures. When one of our team came and said, "Oh my God, you have to see these pictures." Steve's been with Cook officially since 1972. But if you ask Steve, and I have, how long he's been with the company, mysteriously that year gets earlier and earlier every time you ask him. I think if he tells it one more time, he's going to be talking about how he founded Cook before Bill even showed up to Bloomington. So as I'm sure you know, we've already talked about tonight, Cook is the chairman of our board. And I will say with all sincerity that all of us at Cook are extremely happy to have him in that position. We've had a few challenges over the last few years, been some challenging times, and I know that we would not have made it as well or as often, or we would not have made it as far and as well as we have without his experience, knowledge and trust and thoughtfulness. So thank you, Steve. Thank you for that. We have more work to do, right, Steve? But I can tell you that I am thankful to have him there as a mentor and advisor and supporter. It's a tremendous asset and one that I think is not very common in this world, so thank you for that too. There are a lot of reasons that Steve makes a great chairman. And I think one of the most important is, if you know Steve, he can sort of tune out the nonsense and focus really sharply on the issues that are important. And I don't think this is a skill that he developed recently. I think he's actually been born with it. Look at this picture. This is Steve's kindergarten class. All the kids are joking, having fun, you know, having a good time. All of them except one. You can kind of hear him, can't you? You guys see what he's thinking? Can we please go on with this? Get back to the economic policies of the Truman administration? Steve's impact, obviously, in the medical device industry reaches far beyond Cook. For decades, Steve has been traveling to Washington, D.C. and advocating on behalf of patients. And I can tell you that there is virtually no piece of medical device legislation that has not been touched by Steve's influence in some way. I want to give you one important example. There are some diseases that are so rare that it's almost impossible to collect enough data to get a device approved to treat those rare diseases. And most companies don't even bother, they don't see enough money in it. But Steve had the vision to a way to solve this problem. And so back in 1997, Steve was instrumental in getting a law passed called the Humanitarian Device Exemption. And this law allowed companies to more easily get devices approved so they could treat these devices. Since that law was passed in 1997, 73 devices have been approved under that pathway. And that means that tens of thousands of patients have had the treatment they would not have had it not been for Steve's work. Yes. I hope you can see through this brief snapshot into our world at Cook, Steve has had tremendous impact. And it can be hard to visualize all that impact and the contribution he's had. But thankfully, Steve has tried to do that for us. This is his office wall. And if you spend a little time in that office, you can start to get a sense of what Steve is really passionate about, what he loves. And so as I was looking at that office wall one day, I started to wonder, I wonder who Steve loves more. Politicians, golf, his dogs, or Connie? And once you get a question like that in your brain, you got to answer it. So we undertook a scientific experiment, cataloged each individual picture, and determined Steve's love quotient for each category. You want to see the results? Yeah. All right, here we have our 4 categories. Politicians, golf, dogs, and Connie. Let's start with politicians. We know Steve loves politicians. So 49. There were 49 pictures of politicians on his wall. That seems about right, given what we know about Steve. Look at golf. 24, not bad, right? That seems about right. How about dogs? Oh, a big drop-off. Connie, I'm not liking this trend, Connie. I don't think this is going to be good for you. Let's see what Connie did. Oh, she tied the dogs. That's not bad. So, there's no doubt that Steve is very effective, as we've seen. But I think it's when Steve and Connie come together and work as a team that they're most formidable. especially when they have a common goal. Oh, there is the politicians. His first love. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why are Connie and Steve so effective as a team. What makes them so good? And I have their secret. Do you want it? All right. So Steve's approach is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. He has an idea, and then he tells you that idea over and over and over and over again until you give up just from pure exhaustion. Now, Connie's approach is a little more subtle. What Connie does, which is pretty clever, is she gets you drunk on wine and then tells you the idea. I appreciate that approach, and it's a lot more fun, to be honest, I will tell you. So thankfully, as you can see with all these wonderful projects, when they work together and have a common goal, they're highly effective, and thankfully they use their superpowers for good causes. So Steve and Connie, I want to say thank you again for the opportunity to be with you here tonight. You truly are wonderful friends for all of us in this room. And more than that, you've set a standard and an example of what's possible if you're willing to do the hard work. And that's something that will benefit our community for generations to come. So if we could please stand, raise our glasses. To Connie and Steve, congratulations, and thank you for all you've done and all you've done for Bloomington. Cheers.
I keep talking into you, I'm sorry.
Our fourth toaster for this evening is Steve Rondinero. Steve Rondinero is marketing manager of French Lick Resort. He's also a veteran broadcaster, having spent most of his career among reporting the TV news in Miami and Orlando. He's anchored the Drum Corps International World Championship broadcast for over 40 years, and those of you who know Cook and their involvement through Carl in Drum Corps and the Dubuque Colts was very vitally interested in seeing that the broadcast stayed, and came to me when I was at WTIU and said, we need some place to put it. Will PBS do it? We did it. Talked to Steve. Steve had been doing it, and Steve maintained it. But Bill said, we probably need somebody with a world kind of class knowledge of not necessarily drum corps, but somebody that other people would look at just to see them, not that they knew anything about drum corps. And the first person we worked with was IU graduate Dick Enberg. And just before it was all going to happen, Dick Enberg ended up having to do NFL football and was not able to do it. So the next person on the list that we succeeded in getting was Kurt Gowdy. Now, I'll leave it to Steve to tell you about his friendship with Kurt Gowdy, but the one thing you do need to know is it is drum corps. Kurt Gowdy could not quite get that concept and kept referring to it, with Steve Rondinero having to correct it almost every time he did it, when Kurt Gowdy would call them bands. That's the biggest no-no in drum corps you could ever do. So if you recall Bill's passion for drum corps, you'll understand why Steve Rondinero is here, and in French Lick, Steve Rondinero.
But the most egregious thing was the way Kurt Gowdy murdered my name on national TV. That came out Steve Rondalamo that night. So. But he was a legend. All right, French Lick, I need your help here. We're the odd appendage. We know that. So I had a Pete experience when Steve asked me about this thing, and he said, I need you to do a video for me. A video? Okay, great. For what? Well, I'm getting this award. That's how the process started. Thank God I ran into Connie and she filled in the blanks, so we were able to move forward. So, Pete, you were not unique in that regard. However, in planning for this, being in French Lick, I was kind of out of the loop, so I finally talked to Pete yesterday, and he said, oh, I'll have a few slides and that'll be it. I didn't realize it'd be coming up here after his stand-up comedy routine. So, We'll go anyway. One question. In that this is Steve and Connie Ferguson Day, if we get a ticket leaving town, will that work with the cop? Okay, thank you, thank you. It's a long way home to French Lick, Dr. Ferguson. And we do have our French Lick table down here. We are well represented. So, as I understand it, my job tonight is to explain the perfectly rational reason why a biomedical device company would get into the hotel and casino business. Made all the sense in the world. It was, of course, in the name of historic preservation. We had a couple of gems down there that we were going to lose if somebody did not step up, and we had communities in crisis. So as soon as Bill Cook committed a couple $1 million to Indiana Landmarks to shore up the crumbling wall at the long-abandoned West Baden Springs Hotel, Steve Ferguson's job description morphed yet again. Bill was good for that kind of thing. The first task he had was heading Bill off at the hotel, explaining that you can't just cut down trees and knock down walls at a National Historic Landmark. There are certain rules and procedures that have to be followed. What happened from there? Let's take a look. And a listen. There's audio with this.
Wreck. Rational thinkers said, tear it down, let it go, it's too far gone. Well, not many people would describe Bill Cook and Steve Ferguson as entirely rational thinkers. So in we went, deeper and deeper. In the words of one learned man,
well, you do one thing, that leads to another.
Did it ever? $560 million worth of one thing and another. Like then taking on the renovation of the historic French Lick Springs Hotel. Building a new casino, fake paddle wheels and all. People were really questioning Cook and Ferguson's sanity by now. But the working partners they were, Bill had a vision, and Steve had the plan to make it happen. And it is here that I must digress. Bill didn't give a hoot about golf. Steve lives and breathes the game. There was this piece of land on a hill that might make a nice new course, said Steve. We know what happened next.
Well, I remember when I came up with Mr. Ferguson, I walked this property many times, and maybe 5 or 6 times from one to the other, and I just said, you know, it's too severe to build a golf course.
But build it Pete did from this now legendary sketch on a napkin. Steve spent a lot of time on that hill as Pete moved huge piles of dirt for what seemed like an eternity. $26 million later, Bill and Steve were still talking, and we had one amazing new golf course that would help put the resort on the map. Just last month, we were live on the Golf Channel for 3 days, hosting the Senior LPGA Championship to benefit Riley Hospital for Children. That was all Steve's vision, and he's angling for more big golf events. In 2 towns that were once struggling in a county that was once one of the poorest, most underemployed in the state, there's an ongoing renaissance today. The resort generates 1.2 million visits a year and employs some 1,700 people with an economic impact of around $250 million per year region-wide. Under Steve's leadership and shared vision with the Cook family, we're still growing and reinvesting with a new 54-room wing under construction at the French Lick Springs Hotel and a renovation of the billiard and bowling pavilion at West Baden. Make no mistake, French Lick Resort is a passion project. Steve is a zealous steward. Connie is the meticulous decorator, and this historic place is the better for it. While our history is amazing, we're always moving forward under their leadership.
Words do not do that place justice, so I had to show you some pictures. But I do want to take a moment for you to think about equipping and decorating 2 massive, newly renovated historic hotels. That is no small task. Gail was the meticulous historian to make sure it was restored exactly right. Connie took over as the decorator to make sure everything was right inside every room of those hotels. And you'd think once the job was done, but that's not the way we roll with this guy, because he gets an idea, and as you saw, off we go. So she's got more decorating to do with these new additions and these new projects. Our community impact continues to grow with a new affordable housing effort down in the French Lick, West Baden area. Again, Steve and Chuck Franz running point on that. Housing is a real challenge. There's a generous education assistance program that we have at French Lick. It dovetails beautifully with the Ivy Tech initiatives. In fact, I'll admit to being an old goat still working on my master's degree thanks to that Cook stipend. There are tons of people taking advantage of that education benefit now, studying and learning that never would have happened before. But probably our local schools have benefited most from what has been done in French Lick. Steve has been pushing a local literacy program. The casino revenue, or the boat money, as the old-timers call it in the area still, has allowed Orange County's 3 school districts to upgrade and enhance their facilities and their academic offerings way beyond what they ever would have been able to do. In fact, all 3 Orange County marching bands will be driving through here tomorrow on their way to the state finals at Lucas Oil. And permit me a biased moment to say our Springs Valley Band in French Lick will be defending back-to-back state championships. So we're jacked about that. But that's a great source of pride, and that's part of the pride that's come back to that community. Steve has also brought another concept to the game of golf at the resort, and you got a taste of it there. I deliberately put one of those shots in the video. It is the acceptance of comfort dogs on the golf course, as long as they're Labradors. Lucy and Diesel are a part of the landscape at any of our golf courses, as was Bo before them. If you tuned any of the Senior LPGA Championship in on the Golf Channel, you may have heard the dogs barking in the background several times. Steve does make my job difficult at times, though, and you saw evidence of it here tonight. Keith's ready to start the program. Where the hell's Steve? He's not in his seat. Well, he's on my back. I MC most of our affairs at the resort, and he challenges me constantly to keep them short and moving along. Trouble is, I try to get them started on time, and where's Steve? He's out working the tables, chatting people up. Hey, thanks for coming. How are the kids? The car running okay? Whatever. You get the idea. Some of you have likely been on the receiving end of those chats, and I can tell you for our folks in French Lick and at that resort, they mean an awful lot. It's that personal touch that we've gotten from Steve and Connie that make us feel part of the Cook family. Remember, we're down there in God's country. It could be light years from Bloomington in some respects, but we do represent a big, important part of Indiana history. And Steve and Connie make us feel like part of the family. They're our connection to Cook, and we couldn't respect them more, I think is the best word, as these folks down here will attest to. And the vision and the leadership has been really important. Let me borrow a water glass here. There we go. I'd borrow Connie's wine, but she wouldn't give that up, I know. At least not according to Pete, anyway. So I tried to come up with a fitting toast. I just couldn't come up with something that really resonated. So we're going to go back to the first tee of the Senior LPGA Championship and 2 of my Riley Kid helpers. So if you would, stand. Raise your glasses as we roll the video and toast the godfather of golf in French Lick, Indiana.
Are you ready? Okay.
Hit it high, hit it low, hit it where you want to go.
Hear, hear. May your slices in life be few. To Steve and Connie Ferguson. It is now my distinct pleasure to invite 2017 Bloomington Rotary Toast honoree Becky Rizmalis to the stage to offer the community a toast. To your thunderous applause, please. Becky?
There we go. Well, good evening, everybody. It's wonderful to see such a big crowd. Well, do you ever feel lucky? Well, I do. I feel lucky just to be here tonight. I feel lucky because I was honored to be last year's recipient. And I especially feel lucky to be introducing this year's award winners. And I think it's because I feel so good about Rotary as an organization, because they have done so much good for so many people in Bloomington and all over the world. Their excellent motto, you've heard before, service above self. And they live that motto every day. Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million friends and leaders and people just like you. And these are people who see the world where people unite and join together and work together. And because they do work together, they can create lasting change. And I was amazed to learn that Rotary has 110 years of history or more, and celebrating all the change that has happened in that over 100 years. So Rotary wants to dream big, wants to set very bold goals, and I love that. Our Rotary is part of 35,000 clubs that meet across the world. Their mission is to provide service to others, to promote peace, to promote education, to fight disease, to provide clean water, sanitation and hygiene, to grow economies. Wow, I mean, that's a really group of big missions. So I'm feeling lucky tonight, and I hope you're feeling lucky just to be part of this organization. This is Bloomington's 4th annual Rotary Toast, and I'm very privileged to be able to toast them. And I think they've done so much for Bloomington and for the world. A true power couple, Connie and Steve Ferguson. And let's raise our glass and toast to this amazing couple. We want, for all of the things you have done exceptionally, we want to toast to you and your future. Thank you so much.
Oh, we're not prepared for Pete. All I'll say is I knew one of you was going to do that. Didn't you, Steve?
We counted on it to be entertaining.
Yeah.
That's what we were asking.
Yeah, absolutely.
We knew it'd be entertaining.
Well, I just want to say that, I was going to thank the Rotary clubs, but I think that's been done a lot tonight. The Rotary has done an amazing event. This is the 4th event. We're absolutely very honored to be the couple tonight, to be honored. And, we love this community and it means the world to us. And our speakers tonight, it just brings back wonderful memories and things that we've done in our time together. Steve reminded me the other day we've been together for 36 short years. right? It flew by, honey. But you know, it just flies by. When you've had great mentors like Gail Cook, Bill Cook, our life has been full. We've been blessed. We've enjoyed every minute of it. And, you know, I did want to go ahead and say that I wanted to recognize, when I look at my notes, the committee. We had a great committee to work with this year. Jean Dayton, please stand up. And we have, it was Jody and Katie that met with me and explained why we were asked. And, but they worked so diligent for this great event, and you all should be very proud because, you know, they've made it a wonderful fundraiser. You know, tonight's gifts are going to go to the Boys and Girls Club and also to our Ivy Tech nursing program. We have two student nurses tonight. Girls, stand up. And this is Catherine and Amanda, and I got them through Ivy Tech to actually be a caregiver for my mother. They've been with us for over a year, and they just have been fabulous nurses. And God only knows, we need more nurses. So, but it's been, for us to be a wonderful part of this fundraising event, it's been very enjoyable. Jean promised me that it would be painless, lots of fun, and a great dinner. And you just enjoy, Connie, and we have done that. And then the other thing I just wanted to say, and then I'm going to turn it over to my husband, and is, you know, I moved back to Bloomington in the early 80s, and I'll have to say I just instantly fell in love with Bloomington. And it was just my college town. I loved it. It felt great. And shortly after falling in love with Bloomington, well, I fell in love with my future husband. So things just kind of worked out, and we've been, I feel like, this wonderful partner, and we've had the Cooks as our fabulous mentors and best friends, and how could life be any better? It was certainly a pleasant, wonderful life. I'm very proud of my husband. I'm proud of everything he's done, and I'm just lucky to be his partner. And we're going to continue this, but I just want to say we haven't only just begun, but we're not done. Okay? That's my closing comment. It's your turn. Oh, I'll get out of the way.
One thing I'd say, and when we met in May of 1986, she was working for the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Cities and Towns group that enjoys chocolate cake, Steve. That's an inside joke. So she was given a tour, and they asked me to come speak, which I did. And I saw this cute little lady there that caught my fancy, and Bob Doty said, well, why don't we go to dinner? And I said, I'll go to dinner with the group if Connie's going. And so that. Now, let me say, this was May. And I asked for her to go to dinner to me. Well, she was tied up in second week of May, third week of May, June. So we're into July with my ask. And I began to think there's some message here about whether she was going to go out with me. But as it turned out that I did persuade her, and we've been together ever since. As she said, she did a wonderful job. John talked about it, but she put her heart and soul into Ivy Tech. And as they said, there was 1,200 students, and now there's 6,000. They've had 2 additions to the building. The IU joint partnerships has been great to include. And John touched on one thing, the separation from Columbus. And that was one of the things that bothered her was we weren't our own campus. And so she went about getting permission to separate the two. from the commission, and Bob Gartner, she picked up Bob as a friend on that. But the most amazing part was when they were consolidating us with Evansville and Terre Haute and Bloomington. And so she's a little fired up about this. She gets fired up occasionally. And she was a little fired up about this. And I said, come on, just relax. It's a done deal. You aren't going to get it done. About 2 months later, the board of trustees of Ivy Tech in Indianapolis decided that Bloomington shouldn't be part of that region. And completely contrary to my advice, but anybody who was involved in that decision heard from her and heard all the reasons, and she did a remarkable job that helped us move with that. And then the second thing I think that she and John did was make Ivy Tech part of this community. They really hadn't been, but they intertwined it all the way from the Arts Center to working with employers, and the list goes on. But Ivy Tech is really part of this community. I think one of the things that you have to recognize, John put in, part of the team is here tonight from Ivy Tech, but John provided that leadership and put together a great team and really moved that college forward. And you can sort of, I don't know how we could all express our appreciation, John, for that. But the one thing I do want to say is, I'm very thankful that he was a better chancellor than a politician. As you know, he got beat in the primary, so I'm really pleased that. Don't talk about that.
Yeah, don't talk.
I think, a lot of things have been mentioned, but I think it's important to realize that the restoration of downtown and the restoration of the French Lick Resort happened because there were really good people involved and a really good team. Both very difficult projects. But when you put the team together, and several of them are here tonight, but both of them, once you finish and you've got the projects done, they're gorgeous in a lot of things, but it's not one where you build it and they will come. It takes a lot of work and great teamwork to make it successful. And CFC and Talisha and the folks here at the front table make the resort and downtown go. And that is really probably the most difficult tonight, because you put a good team together and you put money with it, and it's going to be successful in the restoration. But the making it go, I appreciate all of you for what you've done, and that is quite an accomplishment. The third thing I want to say, I think everything, when you go through it, is our opportunity has made possible Bill and Gail Cook. They're people with all the right values in the way they treat employees, the way they give back to the community, and you couldn't ask for better partners than the Cooks are to this community. And in appreciation of that, everybody ought to stand up and give Gail a round.
Say something about Michael.
Pardon?
Michael's leadership.
The thing is that Steve mentioned and Pete mentioned, but we started out, and when we first met, we were doing the restoration downtown, and Connie got involved with that full hog. And when we were traveling for Cook around the world, she was right there doing that. When we started down at French Lick, she was in for the time, and so she's been a great partner in all these projects. I think there are two other things I need to say. One, as you know, Pete's a great hunter. If you don't know that, he is. And he loves to hunt, And here recently, he and Janelle went down to a game farm, and they put out birds and they have dogs so you can go around, and when the birds get up, you shoot them. The problem was there was one that wouldn't get up, and so Pete just shot it on the ground.
Poor bird. Poor bird.
So, we're trying not to spread that around southern Indiana, so don't tell anybody. Trying to keep that secret. But I would say, Pete is sort of the person, the lead cook at this time. It's been a great difficulty, but he's put together a team, and part of that team is here tonight, but he's put together a great team and providing the leadership through very difficult times. I don't know that anybody really realizes what he's been able to accomplish and the difficulties and the issues that he's faced. And I have to say that Pete's done a marvelous job and has come in and learned, took it on, worked hard. His hair's getting gray, which it's going to get grayer, but we've got one or two major things left to get over the hurdles, and then I think we're back to doing what we do the best, is serving patients and building good medical devices and helping out the communities where we are. The other thing I'd like to say, in my lifetime, there have been three great presidents of Indiana University. One was Herman Wells, and Herman was next door to me, and I knew Herman well. The next one was John Ryan, and the third one is Michael McGrawey. And Michael was perfect for what Indiana University needed. And you heard about from Keith, but he's changed this university. He's impacted the entire state. He's been president of the entire university. 90,000 students, 100,000 students? Yeah. But he's done a marvelous job. And there aren't very many people who could have done that. I've been on search committees and been semi-successful and terrible in a couple of selections. But one thing that I would say that everybody ought to think about is John was very successful, and he came from inside of Ivy Tech. And the president recognized his strength and leadership skills, but he got to know him. Pete came from inside of Cook, and people understood, and he understood the culture, and he understood where we needed to go and what the appreciation. And Michael came from inside Indiana University. And so I hope everybody, when they leave here, when we start talking about things in the future at Indiana University or other organizations, that you look within and try and develop your leaders, as these three gentlemen have. And there are three institutions that have major impact on this community. And it's really important to have great leadership there. John developed follow-up leadership. Michael's developing his. Pete's doing a good job with his. But we always need to try and get to support within.
And Jenny Vaughn
Yeah.
is John's follow-up.
Yeah.
We need to bring Jenny Vaughn. We've got to do that.
I think everybody's been here long enough, so I'm going to cut it off. And I had more things to say, but I think I'm going to leave it there. Just thank you all. If you're like me, it's time to go to the restroom. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for your donations. Thank you for supporting Bloomington.
Connie and Steve Ferguson, our honorees. Before we let you go, a couple of quick things to let you know about. You heard about my background, and what you didn't hear was for 3 years I worked for that man at Cook Group, the best boss I've ever had in my entire life. But he and Bill Cook were amazing people. And part of this, I think, is urban legend, but so much of it could ring true, so you can confirm it now. Bill Cook liked to drive the Corps buses when he took the drum corps around the country. And they were doing a show in DeKalb University of Northern Illinois, DeKalb, Illinois, and Bill was driving the bus. And when he went around the corner, now this could be the proverbial part of it, a little old lady driving a brand new Cadillac, or maybe not so old lady, but driving a usable car. Bill took the corner a little wide and may have caused some damage to the woman's car. Steve is on the bus with Bill. Steve gets off the bus. A few minutes later, he gets back on the bus. He has purchased the car, and the woman is Bill's guest at the drum corps show that night. Some of that may be urban legend, but I suspect a lot of it is true. And then I've got to tell you one more thing about Steve, because as a boss, this is the thing that intrigues me the most. Steve, in his office, at least when I worked for him at the Carmichael House, Cochran House, Steve kept his phone on speaker. He didn't really use the handset. So if we had to go somewhere, I'd go into Steve's office, and whoever he was talking to, we'd hear that, and Steve would be making phone calls, and we would walk from his office outside. I mean, it's like going from this part of the stage to that part of the stage, and Steve would have 3 more calls to call back in that short a period of time. And so one day as we were riding, I said, "You're amazing." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You return your phone calls." And he looked at me and he said, "Yes, I always return my phone calls." And then those of you who have worked with Steve know there's that Steve Ferguson smile. And he did that Steve Ferguson smile, and he looked at me and he said, "I just don't always do it when I know they'll be there." That is some of the best advice I've ever had in the real world, and I have never forgotten it. So we want to say thank you very much to Steve and Connie. We want to thank you folks for being here, and for a lot of you sharing the anecdotes and the honors that these people have brought to this community. We appreciate your support of the 3 Bloomington Rotary Clubs and the Ivy Tech Scholarship Foundation, and we sincerely hope to see you again next November 1st, 2019 for the 5th annual Toast. Mr. and Mrs. Ferguson will remain on stage to greet people, and this is our evening program. Thank you very much.